Thank you for joining me for another chapter of There's a Pirate in the Family. I hope you enjoyed today's adventure as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If this story carried you away, made you smile, or kept you wondering what comes next, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And I truly want to hear from you. Tell me where you're listening from and what part of the story captured your imagination today. Your comments help shape the journey ahead. Until next time, keep your compass steady, your curiosity sharp, and your heart open to adventure. This is There's a Pirate in the Family, and the voyage continues soon. Chapter 5: The Boy's Secret. It was well after sundown when they reached the baker's house. William knocked at the back door of the bakery, and Mrs. Stockton soon appeared. He apologized for the late call and the disturbance of their supper, and then began the story of how he became a slave owner. William wanted the boy out of the threadbare rags he was wearing before springing on Jessica. After Mrs. Stockton agreed to give the boy a place to sleep for the night, he handed her a copper penny to buy clothing. William put the boy in her charge and went upstairs to his dinner and hopefully a good night's sleep. He would be up early the next day to write the load of iron into record as his men unloaded it. William consulted the calendar in his little leather-bound book and noted that he needed to be in a meeting in Bristol the next afternoon. He was meeting with the Navy man about his idea for new cannon cradles and wanted to discuss his design for the stronger block and tackle system set up for faster sail lifting. William had been doing more business in Bristol with many of the shipbuilders and shipwrights. The work was much like he'd done in his father's shop for years and enjoyed the challenge of this new maritime business. The improvement of tools and their designs was to him the most interesting part of his profession. William was up with the dawn. He dressed and ate a cold breakfast and left his wife and new son sleeping. Mrs. Stockton greeted him at the foot of the stairs. Mrs. Stockton tried to begin a conversation, something about the boy. William did not have the time to even consider the boy this morning. He needed to be in Bristol for his meeting. His mind was on his designs, going over in his head how he would present the sketches and explain how the benefits would outweigh the increased cost of his new ideas. He brushed past the protesting baker's wife and exclaimed, "Mrs. Stockton, please, talk to Jessica. She can handle whatever the problem is with the boy. I'll return from Bristol this evening and discuss the boy with her. I shouldn't be too late. My meeting is just after noon. Please, please, not now." He rushed away, leaving Mrs. Stockton looking bewildered. The meeting went well. The Navy man said he would review his ideas and sketches with the Admiralty and set another meeting within a fortnight. He liked the ideas for improvement and felt he could justify the additional small cost. He seemed to believe the Admiralty would be likely to adopt the improvements in the ships currently under construction. He told William he would offer a contract for his signature at their next meeting. He would need a working model to present at this meeting, and this was a familiar area. He thought about his grandfather, a gifted carver who taught William to make small boats. He sailed on the pond on the family's small farm. His talent for carving improved the older he became. William was still thinking about his grandfather as he plodded up the stairs and into the house. His wife was sitting next to the fire, and sitting beside her was the boy, a bit cleaner and in some new clothes. He looked at the expression on Jessica's face and knew instantly he had done something wrong but had absolutely no idea what. William had learned quickly to keep his mouth shut and let her tell him what was wrong and then apologize profusely, especially when she had that "William, what were you thinking? Look." He held up his hand and asked, "Can I at least have something to eat before this starts?" The boy got up and went to the stove, picked up a cloth-covered plate and handed it to William along with a fork and knife, returned to the stove and retrieved a mug of tea and handed it to him. The child would not meet his eyes, and William wondered at the strange behavior but kept quiet and ate his supper. He knew Jessica would explain it to him shortly, and he could wait. "William, what were you thinking?" Jessica asked with that look on her face. William, looking as innocent as possible, answered, "About what?" He had played this game before and got caught. He was not going to volunteer any information whatsoever that might incriminate him. Incriminate, a new word he had learned in one of the books he borrowed from Lord Braithwaite's library. William remembered asking Lord Braithwaite exactly what incriminate meant, and knew that it exactly fits this situation. He mentally laughed at the thought, careful not to let any hint of humor show on his face. Again, he thanked the Creator for his mentor, Lord Braithwaite, and his marital advice along with everything else. "About buying this girl, what else?" scolded Jessica. "What girl?" "This girl. Her name is Mai Li," she said and pointed to the boy. William's head was reeling, and he didn't know what to say. He sputtered. But, I thought she was a boy. She works like a boy." William sat there in wide-eyed disbelief, and yet somehow he still knew he'd done the right thing. But now, what was he to do with a girl? "Jessica reported that Mrs. Stockton came screaming up the stairs this morning saying that you bought a slave girl, and what were people going to think? William, you know what a gossip she is." "Oh, William, what in heaven's name will we do with the poor thing?" "Her own family sold her," Jessica said with tears in her eyes. "How could anyone sell a child?" She looked toward the crib and shivered at the thought. William looked at his wife and, after realizing what she'd said, asked, "How did you know she was sold by her family?" "She told me, William. She speaks English, didn't you know? Well, some anyway, just enough to make herself understood, kind of a mix between English, Latin, and Chinese." William was flummoxed beyond words and stuttered, "She never said a word to me all the way from Bristol." Jessica looked at Mai Li kindly and said to her, "Please tell William and me how you came to be in England." Mai Li looked up at William, and when their eyes met, he knew everything would be fine. Again, he knew it was the right thing to rescue her from a life of slavery. "Very sorry, girl. I tried being boy all my life. After my mother died, my father dressed me as boy so he could keep me safe by his side. If people had known I was girl, I would have been forbidden to learn, be made to go to work in rice fields with cousins. We never discussed it, but I knew I was not to disclose I was girl. Please not send Mai Li away. I promise I work harder than any boy." "We won't send you away, child," Jessica assured her. Mai Li looked down sheepishly. "Sorry not to be, child. Mai Li is 16 of your years." Jessica's mouth dropped open at this information. This small girl was almost as old as she, yet no age showed in her face as thin as it was. Mai Li said, "I work hard, cook, make clothing, and I have knowledge of medicine plants. My father was a doctor and taught me all. I help him in his work every day till he died when I was 14 years. I was at his side for more than 10 years. After my father died, my uncle took the business, as was his right in the family, but when his wife found out my secret, she sold me into slavery. My father was an enlightened man. He thought I deserved to learn as much as possible even though I was girl, so I learned to read and write. My father paid Catholic priests in Macao to teach me, and he taught me Latin, Portuguese, and small English. My father taught me books as he would a son." Jessica and William waited for Mai Li to explain further, but Mai Li said no more. They sat in silence for almost 10 minutes, each deep in thought. No one knew what to do next. There was a knock on the door. It was the baker's wife. "I brought you some fresh bread 'cause I knew how much William likes my fresh rye bread when it's hot from the oven." William thought to himself that her curiosity must be fired up like his blast furnace and chuckled inwardly. He tore off a piece of the hot bread and, going to the butter tub, dipped the hot bread in it and stuffed it in his mouth. He walked out the door, leaving Jessica to relieve the heat of Mrs. Stockton's curiosity while he went for a walk to think. What a situation he was in, but he knew somehow it was right. Everything was the way it should be. Before long, Mai Li was established as the family nurse and cook. No one in the town gave her much notice, even with Mrs. Stockton's storytelling. Mai Li was seen every day in the market and came to be quite respected as a skillful barterer, always getting her money's worth or better in every transaction, a skill that benefited her new family. Mai Li also took over in the kitchen and discussed with one of William's helpers about how to make a large bowl-like pan she called a wok and a low charcoal brazier. She set about taking the health and welfare of her new family to heart. Mai Li wanted them to be healthy and civilized the way her father taught her. Only of the knowledge of the books did she not speak. She convinced them to bathe regularly. This had been extremely difficult to do until they noticed that Mai Li didn't stink like the rest of them. She bathed every day in the stream near William's shop, even in the coldest weather. Jessica thought her quite mad when she bathed on the coldest day in January. Jessica felt in her heart that Mai Li wouldn't harm her or her baby, and so bathed herself and the baby daily. Jessica soon found, by following Mai Li's advice, they were much more comfortable, and she didn't mind bathing because she got a hot bath in the big copper tub fashioned by William's new friend, the village cooper. Mai Li taught them to be careful of the food and drink they consumed, advising them to only drink tea made from well-boiled water. Several times, Mai Li had taken over the treatment of William's small wounds that festered under the town doctor's treatment, always able to get them to heal quickly and cleanly. Soon the family went to Mai Li when something happened. William noticed his family, who drank Mai Li teas, as she called them, did not fall ill even when many of the townsfolk did. William was convinced Mai Li knew real medicine and maybe her father truly was a doctor. One afternoon, 2 of William's hired men carried William up the stairs on a wood slab. His leg was wrapped in a cloth that showed red with blood. William had been handling a load of iron. A cable slipped and the end of a large piece of the metal tore into his thigh, leaving a large gash deep into the muscle. Jessica sent Millie, the baker's daughter, to fetch the doctor, and she sent one of the men to find young Will and Mai Li. Upon hearing of the accident, Mai Li and young William mounted their horses and at a fast gallop rode home. Young William, though not full-grown, could ride a horse better than most men. They arrived as the doctor pulled them up in his horse cart. Young William and Mai Li climbed the stairs after the doctor and found William lying on his bed with the nasty wound still bleeding. He was pale and in great pain. The doctor looked at the wound and then pulled a lance from his bag to bleed William. Mai Li quickly pulled Jessica aside and whispered in her ear. Jessica stepped forward and asked the doctor not to bleed William. The doctor became belligerent, turned, and left in a huff, saying if he was not allowed to practice medicine as he saw fit, he would just leave. He mumbled loud enough for all to hear as he packed away the lance. They probably couldn't pay me anyhow. Mai Li whispered to Jessica again, and soon she shooed everyone from the room. She immediately went to her staff and disassembled it, opening a container toward the bottom, and she took out several small bottles. The first was a small bottle containing brown powder. Jessica asked what it was, and Mai Li answered, "Poppy, to make him sleep while I fix." She picked up a small drinking cup, poured out a measure of William's favorite whiskey, added a small amount of the brown powder, and mixed it into the amber-colored liquid turned a muddy brown. She told William to drink it down and then got a second whiskey for him to drink. In a few minutes, William's color was improved and he began to feel better as the pain became bearable. She pulled out another small bottle of yellow powder again. Jessica asked what it was. Mai Li responded, "I don't know what you call it," and put it Jessica's nose. "It smells like rotten eggs." Jessica wrinkling her pretty nose. "I think it is called sulfur." Mai Li told Jessica to start boiling water, bring clean towels and the sewing basket. She told young Will to come and watch. She felt he needed to learn what to do in such a crisis. She handed the bottle with the yellow powder to him and said, "Stand here, watch and learn, please." Will stood silently by and watched with big eyes. As soon as the towels were brought and the water boiled, Mai Li washed her hands. She began by washing away the blood from the gaping wound with boiled water so she could examine it closely. She sprinkled the yellow powder over William's leg. The end of the steel had torn deep into the thigh. Part of the muscle had been torn away and was hanging. Jessica brought her sewing basket, and Mai Li chose a large curved needle Jessica used for making rugs. She set the large needle into boiling water, drew out the carpet thread, and added it to the pot as well. William fell asleep and was soon snoring. Mai Li threaded the needle with some odd-looking thread from her staff and began to stitch the muscle back into place. She rethreaded the needle with the boiled carpet thread, pulled the flap of skin back into place, and put in several stitches to hold the skin in place. She sprinkled yellow powder over the whole area and then wrapped the leg in clean clothes torn into strips. "Come now and let him sleep. He will be in pain again when he wakes." The next morning, William woke to find Mai Li sleeping on the floor next to his and Jessica's bed. For a short while, he could not think why this was, until he tried to sit up and move his leg, and the pain and memory of the previous afternoon returned in a flash. His head whirled, and he quickly lay back down. Jessica and Mai Li both woke at William's groans and began to ask him questions. William held up his hand and, as the pain caused by the movement subsided, said, "I'll be fine in a minute." He looked at Mai Li and asked, "How is my leg?" I have helped my father to repair much worse injuries. I think it will heal cleanly, although I had to stitch the muscle so you may have a limp for some time. How does it feel? Much better than yesterday, but it still bloody well hurts like the devil. What give me yesterday that made me sleep? It was poppy and whiskey. I'll give you a little more after you have eaten something. It will help ease your pain. You had a deep gash in your leg. It will take time to heal. It may cause you pain for many days, Mai Li explained. Will there be permanent damage? William asked Mai Li with trepidation in her voice. I don't know at this time. We'll have to see how it heals. You must be walking in only a short time to keep the muscles from stiffening. This may cause pain, but it is necessary. After William had eaten some fish and rice, Mai Li gave him several sips of whiskey and poppy mix. Soon he was singing bawdy songs and feeling no pain. He then slept until the next morning. When he woke, he felt a bit groggy, with a mouth that felt like a desert, complete with a camel train on his tongue. Mai Li drove him to the shop daily, where he would sit and watch his men, yelling directions from the wagon. After a few days, Mai Li encouraged him to hobble about. She refused to let him stay in the wagon. Mai Li removed the stitches, and within 6 weeks, William was up and back to work at the shop. In a little over 2 months, he couldn't even tell if the accident had ever happened. The only reminder was a slight limp and a little pain on cold days, and of course, the ugly scar on his thigh. Jessica told William she thought Mai Li saved his leg and probably his life. The first thing the doctor wanted to do was bleed you. Mai Li insisted I stop him. She wisely informed me you had lost too much blood from the injury and further bleeding was dangerous, so I stopped him. He became very angry with me. William, the man's hands were dirty and the tools he was going to use on you. She left the rest unsaid. William thought back to that lucky day when he had saved a slave boy from a whipping and smiled. From then on, he did whatever or drank whatever Mai Li told him to, with only a grimace at the taste of some, but never a complaint. They never spoke of this outside the family, not knowing how the use of medicines from a Chinese girl would be viewed. They were afraid that Mai Li might be accused of witchcraft by the local doctor trying to protect his practice. William did give some headache tea to Lord Braithwaite when he was suffering from the indulgence of too much brandy the night before. Lord Braithwaite became the only one outside the family to benefit from Mai Li knowledge of herbal remedies. William explained that the headache tea was brewed from the bark of the big willow tree at River's Edge near the smithy. Lord Braithwaite never asked how William had come to find this miracle brew, as he had called it. William knew his lordship was no fool and had immediately put 2 and 2 together. His lordship never questioned William's decisions to keep this young woman in his household. He had seen for himself the changes in William's comfort since her arrival, and he silently approved. Young William was growing tall and healthy, and Jessica was glad to have someone so skilled to care for her boy. Jessica allowed Mai Li to spend more and more time caring for her son as he was growing fast. One day, Jessica noticed that young William was speaking to Mai Li in Chinese. At first, it came as a shock, but being a family who believed in education, Jessica saw it not as a threat, but as an asset to her son. She was again glad they had taken Mai Li into their home and hearts. Who knew what lay ahead for her son? Just the fact that Mai Li was there in their home to teach him Chinese showed that the world was becoming a smaller place. Mai Li took every reasonable advantage of her freedom from slavery. She had never been considered a slave by the family. To them, she was part of the family. However, the townspeople knew her origins, so when in public, she adopted a subservient posture to save face for her family. Even though William told her many times this was unnecessary, she was intelligent enough to know how people reacted to other Chinese with similar origins and the effect it had on status. She advanced her skills in English along with the rest of the family and could read any of the books borrowed by William. She loved her new family, and she also knew that outside this family her freedom would be lost. She was fiercely loyal and extremely grateful to William and Jessica and would never consider leaving. She was paid wages and had her own money, never wanting for anything. She was happy for the first time since her father's death. Thank you for joining me for another chapter of There's a Pirate in the Family. I hope you enjoyed today's adventure as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you. If this story carried you away, made you smile, or kept you wondering what comes next, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And I truly want to hear from you. Tell me where you're listening from and what part of the story captured your imagination today. Your comments help shape the journey ahead. Until next time, keep your compass steady, your curiosity sharp, and your heart open to adventure. This is There's a Pirate in the Family, and the voyage continues soon.